The next mix we're going to look at here is the soil builder mix, and very similar to kind of how its name says, it's all about focused on building up the soil. Quite a bit different than the last one we looked at. However, whenever you look at the actual components of it, we're not that different. But what you have seen is that the amount of some of these components have shifted greatly. Where the last one we were looking at, the summer release one, had a lot of the broadleafs and the legumes. This still has the same broadleaf. See, we still have sunflower, our mung beans, cowpeas. We still have soybeans in here. We do have sun hemp, but what we see is a bulk majority of this mix is our sorghum sedans, and our BMR forage sorghums. So what we've kind of changed from is more of a legume, broadleaf, easily broken down material to a more grass-dominated cover crop that's got a lot longer carbon chains and is a lot harder to break down. So if you're looking for a quick release pattern, this is definitely not the cover crop that you want to be looking at, because what we're going to see is probably actually a nutrient deficiency in the short term. So let's say you wanted to terminate this, go into wheat this next fall. What you will probably see is a nitrogen deficiency, because to break down all of this carbon that are in these grasses, the microbes in the soil are going to have to find excess nitrogen, because the carbon to nitrogen ratio, or the amount of carbon we have per molecule of nitrogen, is very high in these grasses. Especially the taller they get and the more mature they get, the larger that ratio gets. But what we will see is longevity from this. So if you're looking for something to build up soil organic matter, to build up carbon, maybe increase infiltration rates, increase any of the organic matter nutrients content, this is going to be one. It's just not going to rapidly release those nutrients back to a successive cash crop. The other challenge with this is it does have a lot of components that if you were to go through and want to chemically terminate, so we're talking about maybe coming through and spraying Roundup, maybe even spraying Paraquat, it's going to be hard because you have multiple canopies in here. So you have this really high canopy of the sorghum, then you go down and you have these sunflowers, these sun hemp, even some of the mung beans and the cowpeas are coming up. And then on the lower canopy, you have some of our smaller, so you have some buckwheat, you still have some mung beans and some cowpeas, some soybeans a little bit down here, some mustards. And so we have these three distinct tiers or canopies within this cover crop mix. So if you were to go through and chemically terminate this, you might be able to get the top canopy very well, maybe that mid canopy pretty decently, but you might not even touch the lower canopy. So we're talking maybe a couple of applications of an herbicide to maybe completely get this ready for wheat. The other thing we can kind of think of is mowing. That's a lot more effective at getting the whole canopy broken down. The danger, the challenge you have with that is you can get some matting or some really high densities of cover crop and residue, which could be a challenge when you're planting your next wheat crop. So this is really good. It's also a great grazer. Because we're talking about some really high energy as well as some high nutrient components in here. So probably wouldn't want to graze it this tall, because we could probably get into a little bit lower quality. But a couple of weeks when it was just a little bit shorter, maybe a foot or so shorter, would have been a great time to start grazing this, especially if you were wanting to go into a successive winter crop in here. So good grazer, great potential at adding carbon, organic matter, some of those good components to soil health system. Don't consider this a good nutrient cycler, because when it even starts releasing those nutrients, it'll be a very small amount trickled out over a long period of time. Even though we do have those legumes, we're probably not going to see a significant amount of that nitrogen be recycled to that system. And then terminating this and planting the successive cover crop might be a challenge. Once again, not a challenge we can't overcome, but one that we have to very, very meticulously manage to make sure we're getting a good setup for our successive cash crop. The other thing when we think about this, when we think about grazing and the soil health benefits from it, leaving a little bit on top of the soil is really what we need. If you would like to come and graze this or even hay this, we maybe won't get as much soil health benefits as if we were to just completely turn this under or mow it back down to leave it on the soil surface. So it might take you 3 to 4 years to get the same soil health benefits you would maybe get in 1 year if you didn't remove all of this biomass. But remember, we're getting a large large benefit from soil health from the roots as well as the above ground biomass. So this is still producing a pretty significant amount of roots that we can recycle to that soil, improve that soil health, improve that organic matter, that organic carbon. When we take a look at the price of this one, because it does have some of these components that are a little cheaper, like the sorghum sedans, and has it at a much higher rate than what we see on like these sun hemp or these legumes. We actually planted this one at 25 pounds to the acre. And 25 pounds to the acre plus the cost of which we got the seed at the current ratio of seeds that we had present, we're looking at about $17 to the acre. So quite a bit cheaper, especially if you're going to graze it or bale it. It is one of those things that you have a little bit less overhead to kind of capture either on that successive cash crop or working with this cover crop.